This is HSPM 700 Module 2 Part 2. In this module we're going to focus on leadership and management. Now these are two very important concepts, and you will need to understand these concepts in great detail for your midterm and final exam, and especially for exercise number 2. So I will let you know where you need to pay particular attention, and it would be a good idea to go back over these slides that will be posted on Blackboard and review this particular section. So what is leadership? And the three ways we've thought of leadership in the past has been a characteristic or a trait of a person, an attribute of a position. In other words, leadership goes along with the position that a person has. And third, and most importantly, is a category of behavior. So emotional intelligence, what is it? So this is a really critically important concept. So know about emotional intelligence. Read Goleman. So what does Goleman say is emotional intelligence? Well, he says that in the past and even currently, we think of great leaders as being very intelligent, tough, determined, and having a lot of vision. And while those are important characteristics, they're insufficient for success as a leader. What Goleman says is required of all leaders. There's one thing that they're alike in one way. Great leaders all have what he calls emotional intelligence. And that the other abilities, technical ability, that content knowledge, remember process and content knowledge, that content knowledge is threshold knowledge. It'll get your foot in the door as in a job, but to really go to the top you need emotional intelligence. And the further up the ladder in an organization you go, the more emotional intelligence you need. So Goleman organizes his emotional intelligence in terms of 5 different components, beginning with self-awareness, second, self-regulation, motivation. Those are internal characteristics, things that you as a person control. The external characteristics are empathy and social skill. So read Goleman, read it very carefully, know the components, know why it's important. And finally, Goleman in his concept of emotional intelligence will become really important when we get to the theories of leadership, particularly the trait theory of leadership. So one of the most influential articles in all of the business world, the Harvard Business Review 1998 article on what makes a leader. Defining leadership. Leadership is a process, there's that word again, influencing the behavior of others. So it's not so much about the leader, but how well the leader can influence the behavior of others. Now, leadership and management are very closely aligned concepts. Know the difference, and that difference is really slight. In terms of management, it's more the act of accomplishing the objectives through using other types of skills other than just working through people. It involves managing some of the other resources of an organization beyond the persons that work in that organization. So leadership engages others toward the common goal. Management uses other types of resources, including the human resources, to accomplish the mission. And leadership and management may overlap. They're not mutually exclusive, and so the distinction sometimes may appear to be very slight. We'll be going over the theories of leadership, and these are the theories that you need to know about. You need to know the trait theories, the behavioral theories, particularly McGregor, Theory X and Theory Y, Tannenbaum and SCHMIDT's Continuum theory, HERSHEY Blanchard's contingency theory and the more contemporary theories of Burns, Goldman, and Weechee. The first is the great man theory. So in the past, we've thought of leaders as all looking alike as great men. This is a trait theory. And if you Google leadership on YouTube, or go on YouTube and look for videos about leadership, you will find many of them that will identify many great leaders, particularly here in the U.S., presidents and great military leaders. But until very recently, you won't find any of those leaders that look differently. And early on in the second slide, we looked at the early theorists of leadership and management. They all look alike. And that's the problem with the great man theory. The great man theory holds overall that leaders are born, they're not made. And so this is really problematic, and as Goldman points out, nothing could be further from the truth. Anyone can be a leader. In fact, we all have the capacity, regardless of our gender, our race, or our station in life, to be a great leader. This is the first really important theoretical perspective that you need to know. You will apply this in your exercise number 2, and this will be present on your exams as well. So know about Tannenbaum and SCHMIDT's continuum theory from left to right. We've already talked about some of these behaviors: autocratic, very authoritarian, telling people what to do, and moving more toward a more human relations, democratic perspective. And pay attention to the laissez-faire type of leadership style, sort of a hands-off leadership style. In most cases, it doesn't work. So refer back to this slide and read your textbook about Tannenbaum and SCHMIDT and know this leadership perspective backwards and forwards. HERSHEY Blanchard contingency theory. And this contingency theory is another way of looking at leadership in terms of the person that's being led. So this holds that you need to use a different leadership style depending on the education, the training, the experience, and personality of the person being led. And you match your leadership style to the person that you're leading. A more autocratic, authoritarian style of telling is more appropriate with someone with limited experience, perhaps limited education, and going all the way to an S4 style where you can delegate and give lots of responsibility without closely looking over someone's shoulder. So HERSHEY Blanchard, different ways of looking at the style that you should use. This is a further diagram that directs you with the different levels of employee which style to use. Now, the most important perspective of all is that old perspective from the 1920s from McGregor, Theory X and Theory Y. So Theory X, average human hates work, only punishing them will cause people to work, and they value their security over taking the initiative. They want to be told what to do. Theory Y, on the other hand, and this is where the human relations school of thought originated in Theory Y, that work is natural. People will work if they're committed. Commitment comes from rewards, and the average human being wants to work and wants to be successful. And in most jobs, we're only beginning to scratch the surface of the potential of human beings. So know theory X and theory Y and be able to apply it. Likewise, the transactional and transformational perspective of James Burns is equally important. And this perspective views leadership as an exchange of things of value between the manager and the person being managed. The problem with just exchanging this value, you do what I tell you and I will pay you a certain amount of money, is very much working within the status quo. It engenders only ordinary levels of performance, whereas a more modern and contemporary perspective is a transformational perspective using some of the more contemporary leadership theories and perspectives that we have talked about. And the transformational perspective focuses on changes rather than exchanges. So read about this in your textbook. Know transformational and transactional by Burns. This is just a little bit more of the distinction between transactional, transformational, a much more contemporary theory. Weechee and Theory Z think Japanese theory of leadership, think William Deming, quality improvement. So this is a very modern, very contemporary perspective, and the Japanese school of thought in terms of leadership is that there's a lifetime employee relationship between the employer and the employee, and so the organization invests heavily in the employee and invest in terms of things well beyond the scope of work. And the real hallmark of Theory Z is involving the employees as a part of a team in making the day-to-day decisions about how work is done. There's been a lot of studies about all of these theories, so leadership has been something that's been studied really heavily. And back to the traits theory, the great man theory, that might hold that, well, that women don't make very good leaders. And so that has been studied to exhaustion, and you might be surprised, you might not be surprised to find out that in many ways women make better leaders than men. So women have that really essence of leadership that Goldman pointed out, the high levels of social skills that tend to make them better leaders even than men. This next perspective organizes the more modern and contemporary theories of organizational theory and leadership into one single perspective, and you can use this in your exercises, exercise 2, and on your exams, where you need to really talk about both the more original theories of leadership, the traditional ways that we've looked at leadership, and then the alternative ways of looking at leadership. The four new, more emergent, more modern perspectives on leadership are emergence. That is, remember back when we were talking about the classical school where decisions are made top down. In emergence, innovations, good thinking, decisions can emerge anywhere within an organization. Doesn't have to be top down, and it really rewards an organization that is able to gain the benefits and the abilities of everyone within that organization. Likewise, the idea of managing down instead of leaving decisions at the top, one of collective wisdom, you can always make a better decision when the people that sometimes at the bottom of an organization are really engaged and participate in decision making. And guess what? They tend to buy into and support that decision when they're involved in it. So emergence, collective wisdom, and finally two other concepts, obliquity and intrinsic motivation. Obliquity is the idea that in the past we've managed by objectives directly. Let's have a big profit. Let's sell so many units. Let's treat so many patients and then we'll be successful. Well, obliquity holds that if you forget those types of goals, focusing on widgets, and really focus on having happy, engaged, satisfied employees that are committed to the organization and know what they want to do, more or less like the Japanese School of Management Theory Y. If you focus on producing those types of employees, your goals will take care of yourself, and you will achieve that sort of excellence that previously you only hoped to achieve by working really hard toward those directly aligned goals. So working sideways, obliquely, rather than directly. And finally, intrinsic motivation, those rewards that come to an employee and a worker by virtue of doing excellent work, the value of work itself, rather than the extrinsic rewards of salary and status and position within an organization. So if you focus on those intrinsic motivation factors as an employer, and we'll talk more about this in Module 4, if you focus more intrinsically, then you'll be much more successful as a leader and a manager. Organizational design, the third part of our sort of triad of Module 2. So organizations can be designed in two different ways: mechanistic, like a machine, control and efficiency, or organic, promoting innovation and change. And you can see how these different theories line up, and we've gone over many of these, the distinctions between mechanistic design in theory and organic design in theory. Machine, think mechanistic. And think in terms of these large chains of command, many departments, classical management, a more mechanical, mechanistic design is one with many boxes and people in those boxes, the idea of departments, the idea of span of control, another idea that comes to us mainly from a mechanistic idea of top down. So there are different designs. This diagram really gives you two options in terms of how to design an organization: the departments that are designed by function or by program. Now we're gonna have, as a part of this module, an activity that you will do on organizational design, and you'll talk about it in your discussion board. But basically what you need to understand about organizational design is there two competing ways that you could put people in boxes: by function or by program. And you can see here the functional design. It's probably not really beneficial to design an organization that's going to be undergoing a lot of change functionally, but nevertheless it's used commonly, and that would be according to the different types of units and the functions that they perform. The functional design, as you see here, this is an example of an organization that's designed functionally. The other way is by program, and if you think about a hospital, maybe an easy way to think about this, or think about the Arnold School of Public Health by department. So the oncology department, the pediatrics department, the orthopedics department within a hospital, or in the Arnold School of Public Health, the epidemiology department, the policy and management department, and the biostatistics department. This is a little bit more flexible way of designing departments, because oftentimes within these departments they have those functional pieces within the department, and they can be a little bit more independent. But again, this is still part of a generally mechanistic approach to design. And here you see a diagram of a divisional design. A parallel design takes advantage of an opportunity to create work teams within an organization that function on working on specific problems. So various units within an organization will send workers to be a part of a task force or a time-limited, scope-limited team to work on a problem, usually a problem of quality improvement. Teams are often used in that way. The more organic designs, you see one depicted here. Think amoeba, think not having any particular form, and think another dimension of the mechanistic designs are the height and degree of flatness of an organization. Organic designs have very few central persons making decisions or supervisors, much more open. And then finally, within most organizations, there's also an informal organization which good leaders will take advantage of and use as an opportunity to help to move that organization forward. So the bottom line is, I want you to really focus on those key theories that I've pointed out. Read your textbook, chapter 12, to focus more on the theoretical perspectives that I've highlighted. X and Y, you won't find it in the textbook, but it's important. Transactional and transformational, Tannenbaum and SCHMIDT, HERSHEY, BLANCHARD. Know about Birkinshaw. It helps you organize your thinking into the more traditional and the more contemporary perspectives. And finally, don't worry so much about organizational design. If you have good leadership practices within an organization, it will overcome flaws of organizational design. And whether you're in a hospital or in the military or another large organization, remember, you need a certain amount of structure to hold a large organization together. And so those more mechanistic designs work fine as long as you have the management and leadership to back it up and make them effective. So this concludes our lecture on a very important topic of organizational design and theory, and then leadership and management.